January 3, 2026, shortly after 2 a.m. In a heavily curtained room in Florida, illuminated only by the glow of screens, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, sat watching live military footage. What unfolded on those monitors was not a simulation or a film. It was a real-time operation, taking place thousands of miles away. The target was a residence in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. Inside that house, Venezuela's President, Nicolás Maduro, was asleep, unaware that a military operation was already underway to seize him. American helicopters, flying at an altitude of just 100 feet above the ocean, had entered Venezuelan airspace. Their low flight path kept them below radar detection. Earlier, a coordinated cyber operation had disabled Caracas's power grid. Within minutes, large sections of the city were plunged into darkness. As the helicopters reached their destination, special forces descended by rope onto the roof of the presidential residence. Moving with precision and minimal noise, they entered through a bedroom window. Maduro woke as the operation unfolded. He attempted to flee toward a reinforced safe room inside the house. He did not make it. Within 5 minutes, the elected president of a sovereign nation was in custody. Later, President Trump would describe the experience in an interview with Fox News, saying it felt like watching television. But this was not television. It was one of the most extraordinary military actions of the modern era. The capture of a sitting head of state from his own residence, without the consent of his government. Global reaction. When news of the operation broke the following morning, the reaction was immediate and global. International headlines reported that Venezuela's president had been removed from power in a midnight operation known as Absolute Resolve. Questions followed quickly and urgently. Why did the United States take this action? And what did it mean for international law and the global order? If a powerful nation could detain the leader of another country by force, what protections remained for sovereignty itself? The planning. According to intelligence sources, the operation was not improvised. Planning began months earlier. In August 2025, while Venezuela appeared outwardly stable, a small CIA team was quietly deployed inside the country. Their mission was surveillance, monitoring Maduro's movements, residences, routines, and security arrangements. They operated without diplomatic cover. If discovered, there would be no official protection. The CIA also relied on at least one internal source within the Venezuelan government, an insider providing real-time intelligence on the president's whereabouts. Behind closed doors, preparations continued. In November 2025, a phone call took place between President Trump and President Maduro. According to U.S. officials, Maduro was urged to relinquish power. The message was clear. Maduro refused. Secretary of State Marco Rubio later stated publicly that multiple offers had been made to avoid escalation. From Washington's perspective, diplomacy had failed. Military preparation. What followed resembled a meticulously staged military rehearsal. In Kentucky, U.S. forces constructed a full-scale replica of Maduro's residence. Delta Force units rehearsed the operation repeatedly. Fighter jets, naval aircraft, and surveillance drones were positioned around Venezuela. The operation was initially scheduled for late December. Christmas was chosen deliberately, when many Venezuelan troops would be on leave. But weather conditions delayed the mission. Finally, on January 2, 2026, at 10:46 p.m., President Trump gave the final authorization. More than 150 U.S. aircraft took off from over 20 bases. A cyber attack shut down Caracas's electricity. Airstrikes disabled radar and air defense systems. At least 40 people were reported killed during the operation. At 2:01 a.m., helicopters reached Maduro's compound. One aircraft was hit by gunfire, but remained airborne. Within minutes, U.S. forces reached the president. Maduro was transported first to the USS Iwo Jima, then to Guantanamo Bay, and later flown to a military base in New York. Images released afterward showed a foreign president in U.S. custody on American soil. Why Venezuela? The U.S. administration cited drug trafficking and national security as justification. Maduro and his wife face indictments in New York on charges including narcotics conspiracy. However, experts point out that Venezuela is not a major cocaine producer. Most cocaine entering the United States originates from Colombia, Guatemala, and Mexico. Venezuela, lacking a Pacific coastline, is primarily a transit route, mainly toward Europe. Another explanation has dominated analysis: oil. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven crude oil reserves, over 300 billion barrels. Much of it is heavy crude, essential for U.S. refineries built decades ago. Relations soured after Venezuela nationalized its oil industry in the early 2000s. American companies were forced out. Sanctions followed. Oil exports were blocked. Today, China purchases the majority of Venezuela's oil. President Trump himself underscored the issue when he stated, a day after the operation, that Venezuela had stolen oil from the United States, a remark widely cited by critics. Legal and international implications. Legal experts argue that the operation raises serious constitutional questions. Under U.S. law, military action typically requires congressional approval. No such authorization was sought. The administration insists the action was not a war, but a law enforcement operation. Internationally, the United Nations Charter prohibits the use of force against sovereign states. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called the operation a violation of international law. Several countries, including Brazil, Mexico, Spain, China, and Russia, issued formal condemnations. Some described the operation as a form of modern colonialism, a precedent. Critics warn that the implications extend far beyond Venezuela. If powerful states act without restraint, others may follow. The rules-based international order, already under strain, could fracture further. Whether Nicolás Maduro was a legitimate leader or an authoritarian ruler remains a separate debate. What is not disputed is this: a sitting president was taken from his home in the dead of night by a foreign military force. For many, that moment marked a turning point, one that raises a fundamental question. In a world of unequal power, who still decides the rules? Conclusion. The capture of Nicolás Maduro was not just an operation. It was a message. That power, not law, now defines global order. That sovereignty can be overridden. That resources still shape foreign policy. And that the line between justice and conquest is thinner than ever. Whether this moment prevents future abuses or invites them remains an open question. But one thing is certain. On one night in January 2026, the world changed. Venezuela future. What happens next in Venezuela is uncertain, but the consequences will be long-lasting. With Nicolás Maduro removed, power in Caracas rests with an interim government under intense pressure. The economy remains fragile, sanctions are still in place, and the country's institutions are deeply divided. Washington has promised democratic elections and economic reconstruction. American oil companies are expected to return, investing billions to revive collapsed infrastructure. Supporters argue this could stabilize the country and restore prosperity. Critics warn of another outcome. They point to a familiar pattern: foreign intervention followed by political dependency, social unrest, and prolonged instability. Venezuela's oil wealth may once again flow, but not necessarily to its people. Meanwhile, China and Russia, longtime partners of Caracas, are reassessing their position. A geopolitical realignment is already underway, with Latin America watching closely. For ordinary Venezuelans, the future is caught between hope and fear. Hope for economic relief, fear of lost sovereignty. Venezuela now stands at a crossroads, between recovery and repetition, between reform and resistance. What emerges will not only define the country's fate, but signal to the world what power truly means in the 21st century.